Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the YouTube channel. I am John Kurtz. College football, Big 12 specific content right now with conference realignment rolling along. If you are a Big 12 football fan, if you're a college football fan, please click subscribe and put the alert on, the bell on. You can get a video every time I put one up. They're happening very rapidly these days with everything happening in college football and conference realignment right now. Also, please like the video. Continue to comment. You guys have been awesome with that. I love seeing your opinion and your take on what's going on here. We can start a conversation in the comments about everything happening in college football. So today, first and foremost, I have to show this off if I can. This t-shirt that I'm rocking today. Look at this. Good old Big 8 conference t-shirt, which I don't know if that's retro or if technically that's actually modern now, that we basically have a new Big 8 conference with the 8 teams left in the Big 12. Either way, I feel like it's appropriate, and I'm damn proud, all right, of being a fan of a school that is a founding Big 8 member. It's not fun, though, to be one of those schools right now because of what's happening with Texas and Oklahoma, who officially announced today on Tuesday that they are trying to get into the SEC. They have asked the SEC for membership into the conference. Now, there's a lot that's going to be messy about this, a lot of legalities that are going to be very messy about this. Texas and Oklahoma have positioned themselves from a legal standpoint to say, hey, we'll wait it out. We'll go through the grant of rights, the end of that. Be good soldiers, because that's what they have to do legally. But we all know they want to leave earlier. And the question is going to be, how soon can they actually get out? Many people think it could be as soon as next year, but it would take a lot of money. And to me, it just seems like that's a real oversimplification, that it would be done that fast, that it could be that quick and that neat. That's one of the questions that I had on a legal standpoint of all of this. The other actually came from a clip from Rod Gilmore, who's an ESPN analyst who was on College Football Live yesterday. He took it even a step further than that. Forget just trying to milk money out of Texas and Oklahoma for damages caused to the other schools, which is in the wording of the contracts of the Big 12. But let's bring in the Justice Department. Listen to this from my man Rod Gilmore.
If I were the Big 12, I'd be on the horn with the Pac-12 and the ACC and say, look, guys, it's a long shot, but let's call the Justice Department. What we're seeing here with the SEC in Oklahoma and Texas is such a concentration of power and wealth that it lessens competition, that it eliminates consumer choice. You're going to wipe out an entire conference and sort of make that argument.
All right, so that raised another question for me. That seems outlandish and far-fetched, but I don't know. So I had the chance to talk to what I basically have been using as a legal expert on my radio show these days, and that is Curry Sexton, who is excellent, so insightful, an attorney in the Kansas City area. He's a former Kansas State football player, played wide receiver with Tyler Lockett, had a 1,000-yard receiving season, but just really, really sharp. And I had the opportunity to ask him today about all of this. How messy is it going to be? How much will the Big 12 wind up getting from Texas and Oklahoma? How soon can they leave? And does Rod Gilmore have any kind of a point and a case here?
It's going to get messy, inevitably. There's just no real way around it. And you're right. I mean, the Oklahoma and Texas coming out and jointly stating that they don't intend to leave until the grant of rights agreement expires after the 2024-2025 calendar or school year is just legal posturing, kick in under the conference bylaws, kind of derail the conference and not pay the substantial buyouts that are otherwise owed under the conference bylaw. So I think ultimately between the current members and the outgoing members of the Big 12, I think you're probably going to see some stuff that's going to come up in different state legislatures, whether that's impactful or not. We've already seen Texas legislators put a bill on the table that would prevent Texas from leaving the Big 12 without the legislature's approval. Now, obviously, that probably won't go anywhere, especially because Texas legislature is not currently in session. You may see something like that pop up in Oklahoma as well, given the fact that Oklahoma and Oklahoma State are almost certainly going to be separated. And then I think you have to start considering, beyond the buyout that Oklahoma and Texas are likely going to have to pay, you're going to have to start considering the damages that the remaining schools are going to incur based on them leaving. I think there have been some indications that the current grants of rights agreement for the Big 12 allows ESPN and Fox to drop what they ultimately pay out to the Big 12 schools, if certain schools leave. And given that Texas and Oklahoma, are the big, the big market schools, there's a legitimate chance that in addition to the Big 12, losing its top two markets, that these schools are going to start to receive less money as a part of the media deals. And then you get into, how does Oklahoma and Texas entering the SEC, how does that play into their current agreements? Because we know the SEC's media agreements are in place until 2032. And so how does them coming into the SEC impact those other schools? I think it's just the issues are rampant. But at the end of the day, and it's going to get messy, but at the end of the day, kind of like you alluded to, Oklahoma and Texas have vast resources. I think that they will make these issues go away by probably signing a lot of checks.
Yeah, the number, Curry Sexton talking with us here, the number I keep seeing getting thrown out, like with the buyout and what it could cost Oklahoma and Texas, is like 70 to 100 million to get out of this thing. But when you talk about irreparable harm, right, and that's the language here, irreparable harm, to try and recoup losses of potential revenue that the Big 12 could sue for here, like how wide-reaching realistically can that be? Because, I mean, like I'm way over my skis here, but I'm thinking about it just from a Manhattan and K-State standpoint, right? If you're like talking about the economic impact for the university and the city of Manhattan, I mean, we could extrapolate that out a long ways and say, hey, like, look at all of this irreparable harm that you're doing by breaking this contract. Like, how much can actually realistically be done there?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not really quantifiable. I think you can probably begin to quantify how the individual schools would be impacted by the media TV agreements. But yeah, I mean, the sort of the consequential damages that these schools and the communities that they're situated in will incur, you can't quantify those. And at this point, it's hard to even say how that may be quantified, because we don't know where the remaining schools are going to end up. But I think, it's going to be incredibly hairy. And that's why I think it's probably going to be very ripe for a number of different settlements. Oklahoma and Texas are going to try to get this resolved as quickly as possible. So when they ultimately transition to the SEC, they don't have a bunch of lawsuits lingering over their heads. So I think at the end of the day, you're going to see the Big 12 reach a buyout agreement with Oklahoma and Texas, and then all these other sort of tangentially related lawsuits are going to also probably go away just because they would be incredibly messy and incredibly expensive with no real certainty as to the end result.
That makes sense. And Texas and Oklahoma would have more resources, you would imagine, than the remaining schools in the Big 12 to continue to pay for those billable hours and keep it all going. I want to play you a clip here, and Curry Sexton is talking with me, former K-State wide receiver and now an attorney. This was from Rod Gilmore, who is an analyst at ESPN, and he was on, I believe this was from College Football Live yesterday, but he took this even a step further. Here's the clip from Rod Gilmore.
If I were the Big 12, I'd be on the horn with the Pac-12 and the ACC and say, look, guys, it's a long shot, but let's call the Justice Department. What we're seeing here with the SEC in Oklahoma and Texas is such a concentration of power and wealth that it lessens competition, that it eliminates consumer choice. You're going to wipe out an entire conference and sort of make that argument.
So I hope you were able to hear that clearly enough there, Curry, but he's saying involve the Justice Department, bring in the other conferences against the SEC, and I guess say that this is really monopolizing things. Are there any legs to that at all? Because I know Oklahoma and Texas fans laughed at that and looked at it as like sour grapes, anybody that legitimately believes that can happen. What is your interpretation of that?
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with the Oklahoma and Texas fans that kind of scoffed at or laughed at Rod Gilmore's reaction. I just, given the landscape of collegiate athletics and given the various, the private institutions, the public institutions, the interstate commerce, all of the different components that are involved, all the different kind of, legal components that are involved in the landscape of collegiate athletics. I don't see any way that the Justice Department involves themselves in this, and I don't see any way that the Justice Department can alter, the ultimate outcome of the conference realignment. I get it; people are frustrated, especially given that Oklahoma and Texas, the two big media drawing teams, are leaving. But there's no way the Justice Department steps in here and blocks this. They're not monopolizing the market. Are they going to have a stronghold on the market? Absolutely. But that's not going anywhere. The Justice Department's not going to take a look at this.